So I accidentally ghosted my podcast for a couple weeks. Not because I quit, not because I ran out of ideas. Honestly, life just got busy. Market season started, priorities shifted, and before I knew it, a couple weeks had gone by without a new episode. And while I was feeling just a little guilty about it, those last couple weeks also reminded me of something important. Sometimes the plan isn't wrong. Sometimes life just gives you a little detour. Hey, friend. Welcome back to Sparkle and Shine. I'm your host, Cassandra, and this is the podcast where we talk about building a small business, chasing your dreams, and learning the real lessons along the way. Each week, I'll be sharing what I'm learning in my own business, the wins, the struggles, and the lessons that come along with it. So if you're building something of your own too, you're definitely in the right place. All right, let's get into today's episode. So life has just been busy lately. Market season started. I've had some personal stuff going on, and my energy has been split between a lot of different things. And honestly, the podcast just moved a little bit lower on the priority list for a couple weeks. Nothing bad happened or anything like that. I just had limited capacity, and sometimes life shifts your priorities whether you plan for it or not. I think the lesson that keeps coming up for me is that sometimes real life gives us information that the plan couldn't. I'll be honest, I definitely had that little voice in my head saying, "You missed a couple weeks and you're falling behind." And I felt guilty. I wondered if people noticed. I wondered if I was breaking the momentum I'd worked so hard to build over the last year. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. Consistency doesn't mean never missing an episode. Consistency doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean showing up flawlessly every single week without fail. It means coming back. It means picking things back up after life gets busy. Consistency means not letting a temporary pause convince you that you have failed. Because, missing a couple weeks doesn't erase the last year. It doesn't erase all the episodes I've recorded, all the conversations we've had, or all the work that's gone into building this podcast. And honestly, I think we do this to ourselves in so many areas of our lives. We miss a workout, skip a week of posting, fall behind on a project, and suddenly we act like all of our progress disappeared. But progress doesn't disappear that easily. And sometimes life just happens. And honestly, I think that same lesson has been showing up in other parts of my business too. One thing that's really been reinforcing this lesson for me lately is market season. Going into this year, I actually had two different booth layout plans. One included the bead bar and one did not. My original thought was that one of my weekly outdoor markets would be just jewelry. I figured I'd save the bead bar for a bigger event and keep this one to a smaller, more simple setup. And honestly, it sounded like a solid plan. But after the first week, I realized pretty quickly that it might not be the right fit. People seem really interested in the interactive experience. The bead bar brings people into the booth, it starts conversations, and it creates a different energy than if I just have jewelry. So I am updating the plan and I'm getting ready to bring the bead bar to all of my weekly outdoor markets now. And I don't see that as failing to stick to the plan. I see it as learning and adjusting as I go because, planning matters. I think it's important to have ideas and strategies and goals, but plans are allowed to evolve. Sometimes you don't really know what's going to work until you're actually doing the thing. And that's true for so many areas of life and business. Content plans change, booth layouts change, schedules change, goals change. And all of that is okay because planning is helpful, but real life gives you information that planning cannot. I don't think my original plan was wrong. I think I just had to make a few adjustments once I had more information. And honestly, I think that's something we all need to remember sometimes. Just because something changes doesn't mean you messed up. Sometimes it just means you're learning as you go. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about what I want this season to feel like. Because market season is exciting. I love getting out there, seeing familiar faces, meeting new customers, and watching people create something special at the bead bar. But if I'm being honest, it's also exhausting sometimes. There are long days, lots of prep, and only so much energy to go around. And I think one of the biggest things I'm trying to do right now is protect that energy and actually enjoy this season instead of just trying to survive it. And maybe that's the lesson for me right now. Maybe this season isn't about doing everything perfectly. Maybe it's about staying flexible. Maybe it's about giving myself permission to pivot when something isn't working or to slow down when I need to, instead of forcing myself to stick to some version of the plan that no longer fits. Because sometimes we spend so much time trying to create the perfect plan when what we really need is the willingness to adjust. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a little question to think about. What have you changed your mind about recently? Maybe it's a business plan. Maybe it's your content strategy. Maybe it's a product you've been offering. Maybe it's your schedule. Or maybe it's a goal that just doesn't fit the season you're in anymore. Whatever it is, I want to remind you that changing your mind doesn't mean you failed. It means you've learned something. You're allowed to adjust as you learn. You're allowed to pivot when something isn't working. And you're allowed to give yourself permission to do things differently when life gives you new information. So, if there's something you've been holding on to just because it was the original plan, maybe this is your reminder that it's okay to make changes. Sometimes the best thing we can do is stop forcing and start listening. All right, as we wrap up today's episode, I just want to leave you with this. You don't have to have everything figured out. You're allowed to pivot, change your mind, and come back after taking a break. Missing a couple weeks or changing your plans doesn't mean you've failed. It just means you're learning. Maybe growth isn't sticking to the original plan no matter what. But instead, maybe it's being willing to adjust when life gives you new information. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to keep coming back. All right, friend, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you'll come back and join me again next week. Until next time, keep showing up with heart, believe in yourself, and keep shining.